Okay. Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. Today we're doing a Thai noodle dish called Pad Thai. If you are local or if you're in the States, really anywhere in the States, or at least on the coastlines, Pad Thai is a super popular Thai noodle dish that you will find very often in like Thai takeout. So it's a super common food to get like kind of late night, or definitely like one of the more Americanized Thai noodle dishes that come up in a lot of Thai cuisine. If you're unfamiliar, it leans very heavily on the use of tamarind paste. And actually, in my opinion, the most important quality about Pad Thai is not actually the tamarind paste, but actually the use of fish sauce. And that's where all of the really heavy umami qualities that we associate with Pad Thai come from, is the use of fish sauce. And of course, Pad Thai leans very heavily on tamarind paste, of course, too. But in my opinion, that fish sauce is super important. So we're gonna dive into some of that stuff today. If you have any questions for me, feel free and drop your questions in the chat. I don't know everything about Pad Thai, but I know lots of stuff, so hopefully I can be helpful. If you're looking for the recipe for what I'm cooking today, that always lives over on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching on Reddit, that would be the YouTube channel at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, that's the channel you're already on. You made it, good job. But if you're watching on Reddit, that's youtube.com/woocancook. Lots of fun recipes coming up over there. Those are always out every Friday. Every Friday morning we've got new recipes popping up. I think this is a Pad Thai dish that I had done maybe 3 or 4 months ago at least. And it was one of my favorite Thai noodle dishes of all time, for sure. It's definitely a very classic one. So if you're looking for those recipes, they all live over on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/woocancook. Lots of fun stuff. You can never find tamarind paste. Yeah, me too. I used to be able to find it quite a bit at the corner store. Lately, I have not been able to find it. And what I've been settling for lately is this is just a generic Pad Thai sauce, which is essentially tamarind paste. What it really is, though, is tamarind paste with a couple of extra things. Most of those things are other things that we're already adding right now, which is why I prefer to find just straight tamarind paste, because I'd rather not have those things in there. But what a Pad Thai sauce is really like, it's tamarind paste plus, like, I think it has shallots, garlic, ginger. I think it has some cilantro. It definitely has some lime juice in it. All of those are things that go into a Pad Thai, but not necessarily something that I like want to have in the sauce itself, because I'd like to have more control over it, which is why we're adding all of those things to our Pad Thai already. But it's going to be close enough. And the next time that I find tamarind paste, I'm going to buy a lot of it, because it's been really hard to find. So Esther's, I actually totally agree with you. It's for, I don't know, understand really why it's so hard to find. But it has been a real pain to find lately. Hermina, how's it going? Yeah, thanks for tuning in again. Good to see you coming back again. Yeah, hello to everyone just tuning in, and hello to everyone coming back for another episode of Woo Can Cook. If you missed it, today we're making a Pad Thai, which is a really common Thai noodle dish here in the States. In my opinion, probably one of the most Americanized Thai dishes that you'll find in the States. Definitely like right up there. I would say maybe, yeah, probably the most Americanized one, next to another dish that we've done, which is called Pad See Ew, both of which are very like prevalent Thai dishes in the States. So we're going to take a look at what Pad Thai looks like today, and actually we're going to take a look at fresh Pad Thai noodles, which I'm super stoked for, because I was able to get my hands on some finally. Mr. Zine, yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in, as always. So as I was mentioning before, when you can find it, tamarind paste is really useful, because it is literally just straight paste made from tamarind. That's all that's in tamarind paste. It's just tamarind paste made from tamarind. Tamarind being root, I believe. Lately, I have not been able to get my hands on any tamarind paste. I'm not really sure why I can't find it lately. But in lieu of finding tamarind paste in so I guess like maybe the big problem for me at least is that I live in Chinatown, which for whatever reason, when you live in Chinatown, it is very hard to find other Asian groceries that are not Chinese. So unless it's used for Chinese food, it's really hard to find those things. I can't even find kimchi in Chinatown. I can't find anything Korean. I don't think I've even come across ramen noodles in Chinatown. They don't carry anything that's not Chinese, or if it's not used in Chinese food. Tamarind's a bean? Oh, there you go. But yeah, so in lieu of tamarind paste, what we're using today is just pad thai sauce. So I was talking about this a little bit earlier. Pad thai sauce, if you see it come up, usually it will be made by one of the big manufacturers. This is a Lee Kum Kee pad thai sauce. The camera's kind of blurry. It'll be fine because it's mostly just tamarind paste. That's what pad thai sauce is, mostly just tamarind paste. But it also has a couple of other things in it which I don't necessarily want in there, but it's going to be in there anyway. So we could actually take a look. So this pad thai sauce has, the first ingredient is sugar, which really bothers me. But the second ingredient is tamarind concentrate, so that's probably the most important thing. And then it has a couple of other things. So it has shallots, it has tomato paste, rice vinegar, chili pepper. It has some peppers in it. It has some garlic, and then a couple other things that look like preservatives. So of the things that I just named off, a couple of them are things that we already cut up. So it has garlic, which I just finished cutting up. It has some shallots, which we're chopping up right now. It has sugar, which I don't want, and it has chilies in it, which is what we're going to get to next. So it has Thai chilies in it. So all of those are things that we're already adding. So if I can help it, I'd rather not have those things be present because I'd rather be more in control of what I'm putting into my pad thai. But if you can't help it, it'll be fine. Good point though, yeah, tamarind paste, for whatever reason, for me at least, it's been hard to find. Pad thai is your favorite? Yeah, totally. Pad thai, at least here in the States, is a really, really popular one. It's like definitely one of the more prevalent Thai noodle dishes in the States, and definitely like really, really popular for like Thai takeout. So, buy GameStop shares. Are people still doing it? We buy AMC shares, or I buy AMC shares. All right, so right now what we're doing is chopping up our aromatic elements. So those are what we just finished chopping up were garlic and ginger, and right now what I would like to start doing is chopping up this shallot. If I can get this the skin off. The shallot is probably one of the more important things in a pad thai. If you can't get your hands on shallot, I have very, very frequently when I forget to buy a shallot, I like to just use a regular old, like a quarter of a purple onion, and it works just as well. If you happen to have a shallot or are able to get your hands on a shallot, or remember to buy it ahead of time, I find that it's like a little bit more concentrated and works a little bit better as an aromatic element. Whereas a purple onion, because it's less concentrated, you have to add more of it, which means that when you add it as an aromatic element, it sheds off a little bit more liquid, so it causes a little bit more problem as an aromatic element that you won't really find with a shallot. So when we use a shallot as an aromatic element, this is going to almost completely disappear into the aromatics. So there will not be any like structural elements of shallot in our final pad thai. This is going to completely disappear because we're going to throw it in with our aromatic elements. For the same reason that you don't find ginger and garlic in a pad thai, even though we're adding, this is actually quite a bit of ginger and garlic. When we add them in really, really early as the aromatic elements, they're just going to dissipate straight into the sauce. So for that reason, I like to use a shallot if I can help it. Fish sauce, yeah, we're getting to that. That's coming up soon. I was talking about that earlier too. In my opinion, I think that maybe second to the tamarind paste, that fish sauce might be the most important ingredient to a pad thai, because that's like what that quality of umami that you're associating with the pad thai. It's not the tamarind paste. I think it's coming from the fish sauce. It's like that really, really fishy fermented flavor that you're getting. That's all coming from the fish sauce. So. You can't make pad thai without either tamarind paste or fish sauce, but I think that fish sauce is extremely important, and more important than I think lots of people are led to believe. Good catch though, yeah. Yeah, Thailand, they use noodles that are cut a little bit differently. I think like they definitely look. Well, I think probably the biggest difference is that very, very frequently you've come across rice noodles. Actually, I don't think I've come across any other kind of noodle in Thai food other than the rice noodle. Maybe that's not true, but I definitely very rarely find Thai dishes that are done without rice noodles. So today we're using, this is going to be fresh rice noodles. So if you've watched these streams before, I have definitely cooked pad Thai on a stream before. But most often I will be using rice sticks or just like dehydrated rice noodles. So these are really, really pantry friendly. They're completely dehydrated. You can throw them in the pantry. And I keep those around in case I forget to buy fresh noodles. But today I remembered to buy fresh noodles, so I went down to the noodle shop and we picked up some fresh noodles. And these are going to be really, really good because they're fresh. They're probably made a couple days ago, maybe even less than that. So fresh noodles, they are already cooked. There's nothing that you have to do to this. I'm going to rinse them in water to break it apart. But other than that, this is going to go straight into the wok after that. So that's going to be really, really tasty. And a rice noodle is different, a little bit different from like a wheat noodle or even an egg noodle because it's cut in a sheet. So it's rolled out in a big rice sheet, so like a big giant like 12 by 12 foot sheet, and then they chop it up from there. So it looks a little bit different because of the way that it's folded. So you can even see it in the way that it's folded here. It's like folded as if it was a sheet and then sort of chopped. So you can see that structure even in the fresh ones. Really interesting. Okay. You kind of why don't I mince the garlic? Yeah, good question. Yeah, so super often. So with pretty much everything that I cook. Good question, Hermina. With pretty much everything that I cook, we start off with two elements. Those are usually ginger and garlic. With garlic, garlic has a quality about it in which when you crush it, it releases a quality that's called allicin. And that allicin is where all of the flavor lives in garlic. You could think of it as like the juice of the garlic. So if you don't remember to crush garlic, it doesn't really taste like anything. Almost like I'll venture to say is that it doesn't taste like anything unless you're chewing on a very large bite of garlic. It really doesn't taste like much. So it's super important to crush it. What's really useful about garlic though is that once you crush it, it kind of just starts falling apart. So as long as you give it a really good crush, pretty much just starts crumbling apart from there. So you don't really need to mince it. You can mince it. I definitely have friends that swear by mincing their garlic, but I found that you don't really need to. You can. It doesn't make that much of a difference if you forego that mince and save yourself maybe a minute or two without doing that mince, and it's really just going to kind of come apart in the wok fry anyway. As long as you remember to give it a really good crush, and that allicin starts releasing. Yeah, cool. Oh, cool. Yeah, so many people also tuning in. A shallot has more garlic flavor than red. Yeah, totally. A shallot is so that's like the quality that I've noticed about a shallot is that it's a lot more concentrated in flavor. So I think if you're in a pinch, you can. I use red onion in lieu of a shallot all the time, and it'll be fine. But it's not quite as concentrated, so it's not you're not going to derive the same, almost not quite the same quality of aromatic flavor from it, from that red onion. So if you remember to do it, if you're at the grocery store and you remember, like I did, I was at the grocery store on Friday last week, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make pad thai next week. I'm going to buy some shallots, and I remembered this time, so then we have shallots. Actually, today might be one of the first times that I've cooked this dish in a while, where we actually have all of the ingredients. So that's mostly because pad thai has a lot of ingredients. So we're going to get to that in a second. But I finally remembered to pick up some bean sprouts. So we're going to be using some bean sprouts. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's really Petrocilius Zewackel. That's weird username. Yeah, that's a really good way to think of it. It looks a little bit more like a tagliatelle. Although tagliatelle is like really wide, but I understand what you mean. Is like a tagliatelle is cut in a really large sheet, and then it's sort of actually sometimes it's just like that's how you get it in like a really large sheet. So a Thai noodle, like a Thai rice noodle, it looks kind of similar to that in the way that it's cut, which is really interesting. They're also like. The other thing I will mention about Thai noodles, or rice noodles at least, is that they're really delicate, so we're going to cook them in a little bit different way than we normally would. Yeah, totally. Cool. TX to the moon. Cool, good username. Yeah, how's it going? Hello, everyone. Cool. Yeah. Hello, everyone, just tuning in. My name is Wesley, this is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time catching one of these streams, we're streaming every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6:30 PST, and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. PST. Today we're doing a pad Thai, which is a Thai noodle dish that's super popular in the States. Probably one of like the most popular Thai noodle dishes. I would venture to say that even probably a lot of Americans, this might be the only Thai noodle dish that they know of. Because it's that popular when they go to Thai places. At least I used to when I was a kid. This was the only thing that I ever ordered because I really like pad Thai. Why try anything else? So if you're looking for the recipe for this is a recipe that I wrote myself maybe 3-4 months ago, maybe even longer than that. That's up over on my YouTube channel, so if you're looking for the recipes, those are always over there. We have a couple of series going on. I believe this recipe is just a straight up gift recipe that I threw up on the YouTube one time, a long time ago. But we have a couple of different series that are going on over on YouTube right now. There's a whole series that's dedicated to reproducing foods from Chinese American culture, which is probably my favorite one and also like the most popular one too. So we've been doing a lot of food from places like P.F. Chang's and Panda Express, stuff like that, and kind of using it as an opportunity to deconstruct what Chinese American food looks like and why Chinese American food looks the way that it looks, like what happened to Chinese food when it became Americanized, and like what are the qualities about Chinese food that you get in the States that are traditional and like come from actual Chinese cuisine, and what are the qualities that are like not Chinese at all. Like a lot of Chinese food that you find in the States is not Chinese at all. It's really just American food. So we have a whole series that's dedicated to doing things like General Tso's chicken and honey sesame chicken, things like that, and deconstructing it and kind of taking a look at like what it would look like if those dishes were made without all of those really American qualities. So if you're interested in stuff like that, hop over to the YouTube channel and check out what's going on over there. Lots of fun content like that coming up. In addition, including the concurrent live stream, which is the stream that's happening behind me. That stream is, in addition to having better cameras, which is, in my opinion, a big plus. But in addition to the better cameras, that's also where the whole schedule of everything that I'm going to cook lives. So if you want to know ahead of time what I'm going to be cooking, you can find all of that information over on YouTube. So there's a whole schedule. Turning off. So yeah, if you're interested in stuff like that, definitely hop over to YouTube and check out some of that stuff. Lots of fun content coming up over on YouTube of late. I believe we're doing a white miso Japanese curry that's coming up this Friday. Oh, Tim, you finally got in touch with Brent. That's cool. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he's really stoked for those mics. You really need to invest to make the most basic stuff. Yeah, totally. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of sauces in a lot of Asian food. Actually, today there are not that many sauces in what we're using today. Actually, the only sauces that are going into today's pad Thai is fish sauce and tamarind paste. Those are the only two things. Everything else is a veggie, which is really interesting because in like a lot of the streams that if you've watched these streams before, a lot of them use huge numbers of ingredients. So you very frequently will see me adding like 6 or 7 different things to a sauce to kind of build it out. But a pad Thai is actually really basic, so it actually does not require very many things. The cracked eggs, yeah. Yeah, my egg cracking method is, well, it looks good, but when I crack eggs one-handed, very often I accidentally end up with eggshells in the eggs. But I've also been cracking eggs one-handed so much that I like have gotten really bad at cracking eggs two-handed now. So pluses and minuses. But I would say like 1 in 3 times when I crack an egg, there's some shells in there. Cool. Oh, preferred methods for donations. Yeah, Tim. So if you're looking for a donate link, the donate link is over on YouTube. So and that is streamlabs.com/woocancook. So if you pop over to the YouTube channel and check out that stream, there's a donate link at the top of the screen over there. I don't have a donate link on the Reddit channel, but that one is over there for sure. Username checks out, totally. Yeah, you always thought a lot of these recipes were intimidating, but when I break them down, yeah, that's like definitely when you break down some of these recipes, they're not nearly as complicated as a lot of people think. It's really like I think like the way that I look at it, like most wok cooking, it's not nearly as complicated as you think because it's all really most wok cooking is essentially the same thing, which is why. Like I have gotten pretty good at crossing over into different Asian cultures. Like today we're doing Thai food, and that's because wok cooking, it all follows a similar principle. Is like essentially assemble a sauce, taste to season once you assemble that sauce, chop your proteins, and then make sure that you don't overload the wok. And then after that, it's really like a wok fry is all really essentially the same thing. Like as far as like how like I know cooking. Wok cooking is vastly easier than other cuisines of food that I have experimented with. So like, I have cooked quite a bit of Italian food, which is very hard. Italian food is very hard. French food is probably the hardest thing that I have come across. Anything baked is extremely difficult because it requires enormous amounts of precision. French food and baking both require huge amounts of precision, whereas like wok cooking is more about improvising and like kind of adjusting as you cook. So like definitely when I cook stuff, definitely when I'm baking stuff, that's like where I'm out of scope for sure. That award cost $120. Well, that's crazy. I didn't even see what award it was. Argentinium. Well, cool. Well, thank you. That's really cool. Some of these awards are crazy. I don't always keep track of all of the awards that I get, but that's a cool one. I think like the Turnion award is probably like the craziest one that I've gotten. But yeah, thank you. If you donate $100 when you visit the Bay Area, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I will for sure cook you a meal. Thank you, Tim. Cool. All right. Oh, Sherilyn, you just donated. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for donating. The dancing hamster, or the hamster eating ramen, is what's supposed to pop up when you donate. But Hamcharo is broken. I don't know if he's coming back. I don't know how to fix him anymore. But thank you, yeah, thank you for donating. I think that's super awesome. I am very excited to replace this dumb lapel mic that keeps crapping out all the time. So if you've ever watched these streams on Reddit before and heard my voiceover just kind of crap out somewhere in the middle, that's because the mic that I'm talking into is made, I think, somewhere like in the mid-90s, maybe even the 80s. So it's a piece of junk that very desperately needs to be replaced. So that's what we're taking donations for over on YouTube, is to replace this lapel mic. Holy crap! 5 hours of airtime. That's new. That's neat. That's got to be the award. Thank you. All right, so I'm just finished up. This is some cilantro. This is going to be our garnish at the very, very end. We're going to add this to our finished pad thai as our garnish. The one thing that we want to keep in mind anytime that we're working with, today we're cooking with chicken, is that anytime that you have a garnish like this, like cilantro, you want to keep it very physically far apart from anything that's raw, because that means anything that is not a garnish or anything that's not going to be cooked is in the most danger of cross-contamination. So if you have something that is not planning to be cooked in a wok, that's probably the most essential thing to make sure that we don't cross-contaminate. So that's our one garnish for today. Actually, we have two garnishes. The other one is some peanuts, but that's going to come very, very late. Cool. Yeah, totally. Some very, very low percentage of tourists. That's where I go. All right. So today we're cooking up. This is some chicken thigh. This definitely my preference for pad thai is to use some chicken thigh because I like the extra fat to kind of build up the sauce of our pad thai. You can also do it. You could really do it with any kind of protein that you've got. I believe the original recipe that I had written uses tofu, so it's vegetarian. And that was like during a time where I was just cooking a lot of tofu. I don't really know why. I don't know. I don't have a good reason as to why I made it with tofu, other than I just was using a lot of tofu at that time. So you can really use it any kind of protein that you want. You could also use chicken breast too if you want. I have never tried it with pork, but it would probably work with pork. I've never done it with red meat either, but I bet that would work just fine too. So use whatever kind of protein that you want. What's most important though is the general shape and size that we're chopping right now. So you'll notice that there's a very specific shape to each piece of the chicken breast, and that is like a kind of I guess you would call that like a strip. I'm not quite sure the technical term of it. But what's really important here is that we want these to be in long or short, maybe half-inch strips that are cut pretty thinly, and that's to make sure that they cook evenly, so that we have a nice even bite to our chicken. Yeah, thighs are the way to go. I think thighs are definitely the way to go for this particular meal. I recently cooked something where I used chicken thigh, and I didn't think that it was good. It was not the right choice. Actually, probably the most recent thing that I did was a chicken katsu, which you very specifically need to use chicken breast, and that's like how the dish is made. It cannot be made with chicken thigh. So it's not always the best, although it's very, very frequently. Anytime that I'm working with a dish that has doesn't have very much fat in it, I love using chicken thigh in order to build out fat. So if you've ever followed a lot of the dishes, where I think probably the one that I did most recently was a bacon fried rice, and in that bacon fried rice it had a whole bunch of bacon fat in it. So I used chicken breast for that one, and I stand by the fact that you definitely need chicken breast for that dish, because that extra fat from the chicken breast is going to clash with all of the fat of the bacon if you're not careful. All right. So that's our chicken thigh. Getting to take the white pepper out. There it is. I'm not going to get super fancy with our marinade, but we're going to add a tiny bit of white pepper. That's maybe a quarter teaspoon of white pepper. And a pinch of salt. And that's going to be it for our marinade. We're not going to do anything else here. We don't really need to get super fancy with the marinade because that sauce is already giving us quite a bit of flavor already. You will also notice that this might be one of the, not the only, but maybe one of the only recipes where I don't use any soy sauce. There's no soy sauce in this recipe at all. And that's because, in my opinion, when I have messed around with the use of soy sauce in this recipe, is that it clashes really hard with the tamarind paste. So I very specifically am going to be avoiding the use of tamarind paste to make sure that it doesn't clash with everything else that we're using. So. Cool. So that is it for chopping. Oop, I forgot something. Take that back. Cool. The very last thing that we're going to chop up, I probably should have chopped this up before I did the chicken, but I forgot. These are some Thai chilies. If you can't find Thai chilies, they're not that hard to find, but if you can't get your hand on them, you can use any kind of chili that you can get your hands on will work. I used to do this with jalapenos all the time. You could also do it with a Fresno or a Serrano. Really any kind of chili that you can get your hands on that will work. But in my opinion, the flavor of a Thai chili is very iconically the flavor that you associate with any kind of heat in Thai food. So I actually think that it is really, really critical to the flavor of a Thai dish. But if you can't find it, I have totally done this dish many, many times with jalapeno, and it works just fine. I'm using, this is going to be 6 Thai chilies, and I'm not de-seeding them, so there's going to be a little bit of heat that's coming from these Thai chilies. If you are averse to heat, definitely always, anytime that you're working with a pepper and you don't like heat, pull out the seeds. Slice it open and take out the seed, or just skip it entirely. And that will absolutely decrease the amount of heat. So if you've ever been and they ask you how spicy you want it, the way that they gauge that is by whether or not they remove how much seeds they remove from the peppers that they're adding. So if you say you want it mild, they'll probably either de-seed the peppers entirely or leave it out entirely. Today I'm not going to de-seed them at all because I want all of this heat. The clean, yeah. So we washed the cutting board, probably while you weren't looking. But good point though. That is also the reason why I like to do all of my vegetable chopping before I start chopping the chicken. But and that's basically just because if you do all of your vegetable chopping before you start chop the chicken, you don't have to worry about cleaning your cutting board until after you're done cooking. But yes, I did have to clean the cutting board. Cool. Yeah, let's do our sauce next. So next up, I'm going to assemble my sauce, which is literally just tamarind paste and fish sauce. Like I said before, that fish sauce is going to be really, really critical here. So here's 4 tablespoons of tamarind paste, or really pad thai sauce in this case. And that's going to be where all of the color comes from. I know lots of, especially here in the States actually, lots of people think that it's ketchup, or the use of ketchup is very frequently substituted for tamarind paste. That is definitely an Americanization of pad thai, if you ever come across that. And next up, this is 6 whole tablespoons, or a little over a 1/4 cup of fish sauce. That might feel like a lot of fish sauce, but I have to tell you that it's a really, really important quality to pad thai. And that is why there is so much fish sauce in our sauce today. So the only source of fermentation we're going to find today is in that fish sauce, which is why it's so critical. I'm going to season this with a little bit of salt. Yeah, it's good. And we're pretty much ready to start cooking. Probably should have preheated the stove earlier. There we go. Okay, so while the wok is heating up, oops, forgot to plug this laptop in. While the wok is heating up, we can walk through. Well, we have one more thing to chop up actually, so we can get to that. I'm going to do one more garnish here. These are going to be some crushed honey roasted peanuts. The peanut garnish is probably one of the most iconic things of pad thai because it's probably the thing that stands out the most because it's the first thing that you eat. I think it's a really critical element. But I have started using, these are honey roasted peanuts, which you can actually find in the snack aisle. I think that I found the use of honey roasted peanuts is one of my new favorite things. I think I did it yesterday in yesterday's stream too. And it just kind of gives a little bit more oomph, and you get a little bit more out of it than you would if you were using a raw peanut or even a basic roasted peanut because it has a little bit of honey to it. So one of my new favorite things to add to a dish is substituting raw peanuts with honey roasted peanuts. It's gives us a little bit of extra. Super trip, yeah. So we washed everything. Everything was washed. Even if I placed it onto the board, I washed it before we cut anything else. Cool. So that's our peanuts. Our wok needs a little bit more heat before we start cooking. And then the last thing that we're going to garnish with is going to be some lime. And these are some limes that I already cut up for something else. I forget what I was cooking. I think it was fried rice. So these are going to be our last garnish, and then we're going to start cooking. Oh, we could do our noodles first. All right. So with fresh rice noodles, there is no need to boil them or blanch them in any way because they're already cooked. That's the quality of rice noodle. That's so great about fresh noodles is that they're already cooked. So rinse them off. I like to rinse them off a little bit just to make sure that we kind of shake it. If you've ever worked with fresh noodles before, they can stick together a lot, which is a little bit frustrating because sometimes if you're not careful, they will stick together and then you'll have clumps of noodles in your wok fry, which is never good. A little bit too much. So I'm going for 12 ounces of rice noodles here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to give this a quick rinse in some water just to break it apart. So you'll notice that there's quite a bit of like this right here. This is all clumped together into one giant piece. And that's because it just sort of clumps back together when it's packaged. That's also the reason why you'll also notice that it's coated in oil is so that they break apart easier. But the other thing that I like doing is to just give it a little bit of a rinse to make sure that it doesn't clump up in the wok fry. Yeah, that ought to do it. All right. So real quick, we could take a look at it. So these are our rice noodles. You'll notice that some of this oil is sort of rinsing off, which is okay. Not the end of the world. We don't need that oil. But what's really important is that we have these nice separated strings of noodle. If you're not careful, if you throw that stuff straight into the wok, and I have done this pretty recently, actually, that was a couple weeks ago. If you throw fresh noodles straight into the wok and you don't make sure that they unclump, you will have a giant clump of rice noodle, and you basically will have a pad thai block, which is not good. That's a real bad situation to be in. So this is not boiled water. This is literally just fresh tap water from the faucet. So it's not cooking in any way. It's just going to keep there to make sure that they don't clump up. All right, so, yeah, did I miss anything? Cool. Yeah, cool. before we head over to the stove. Over on the stove, my wok is preheating right now. We need a little bit more heat before we start cooking. Anytime that you're cooking in a wok, you want to make sure that that thing is ripping hot. This is going to be as hot as it can possibly get, so my fire is on extremely high heat, and then we'll be ready to cook. All right. Hello to everyone just tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time catching one of these streams, we're here streaming every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6:30 PST, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. PST, with new recipes. Those are popping up over on the YouTube channel every Friday. If you haven't checked out some of those recipes, those are always over on the YouTube channel. And almost always, anytime that you find me cooking something on stream, I'm probably cooking through something that I have released a recipe for. So this recipe is a recipe for a pad thai that I did. That was, I think, back in October or November. It was a while ago. And that always lives over on the YouTube channel. So if you're looking for that stuff, if you want to figure out how to cook the things that I'm cooking, those recipe videos are always a little bit easier to follow because I don't ramble quite as much. There's also a written version that also lives over on the YouTube channel, and it's also a good source to check out if you're looking for something that moves a little bit slower. There's a couple of different series that live over on that channel. There's a whole series that's dedicated to reproducing foods from the Bay Area restaurant scene. So this one comes from, actually I think I did this one before we started the series, but a couple of the Thai noodle dishes that we've done come from a restaurant in Oakland called Nicha Thai. There's another series that's one of my favorites. It's probably the Chinese American food hack series that we've been doing, where we've been deconstructing a lot of the classics that come from places like Panda Express, PF Chang's, things like that. Places where Chinese food is really, really Americanized Chinese food. And we kind of take a look at like what are the qualities about Chinese American food, like Americanized Chinese food that like sort of come up as like American qualities. So what are the parts of it that are really, really American? And what do those dishes look like if we were to remove all of those American qualities? So that's really interesting with some dishes with things like pad thai, or really like things like General Tso's chicken or honey sesame chicken, stuff like that. Things that are not really Chinese, they're really just American food. Honey sesame chicken is really just American fried chicken in a honey glaze. So it's really interesting to deconstruct stuff like that, because then we can take a look at like what does it look like without the American qualities, and kind of take a look at what would it look like if we were to assemble it in a traditional Chinese wok fry. So if you're interested in stuff like that, definitely hop over to the YouTube and check out what's going on over there. Lots of fun stuff coming up over there, including the concurrent live stream. So that's the stream behind me, which some folks are already watching on. That live stream also has a whole schedule of everything that I'm cooking. So if you were watching over on YouTube, you would have known, I would say like 3 weeks ago or so, that I would be cooking this. So if you haven't checked that stuff out yet, definitely hop over to YouTube when you have a chance and check out what's going on over there. All right. So, once our wok is nice and hot, what we're looking for is a lot of smoke billowing off of the wok. So once we start seeing a lot of smoke coming up, a couple of things are going to happen once you start seeing lots of smoke coming up off of your wok. The first thing that you want to do is open all of your windows and probably unplug your smoke detectors, because that's going to start billowing out into your apartment. So all of my windows are open right now. The other thing that's a sign is that it's a sign that you have lots and lots of heat in the wok. So if you don't see that smoke, it means that your wok is not ready to cook on yet. So stop what you're doing and wait. Very, very important. Make sure that your wok is hot before you start cooking on it. Yeah. Alright, so first up, I'm going to start off with not too much oil here. This is just going to be maybe 2 tablespoons, maybe a little bit more than that. That's just enough to do our long yao, which is the process of creating our non-stick surface. We're avoiding adding too much oil here because what we're going to do is bloom our aromatics, and then we're going to add it to our sauce. So we don't want to add too much oil at this point, because if there's too much oil, it will separate in the sauce, and then you're going to have a layer of oil in your sauce, which is not good. So we want to avoid adding too much oil here. So I'm starting off with my garlic, ginger, and my Thai peppers. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bloom this just long enough until it becomes fragrant. That's usually for me is about 10 seconds. But use your nose and smell. When you start smelling garlic and ginger, you're ready to go. Okay. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to add our aromatics to our sauce, and that's going to infuse our sauce with the aromatic qualities of the things that we just bloomed. So that's all our fish sauce and our tamarind paste is living in this sauce, and that's going to give us some nice depth of flavor in that sauce. And the most important thing to remember when you wok fry, especially when you're batch cooking, is to rinse out that wok so that we don't have anything burn. So give it a rinse and make sure that there's nothing left behind in that wok, because if anything is still in the wok, it's going to burn, which is not good. All right, so basically what we're going to do from here is just repeat. So we're going to let that wok reheat again, and then we're going to add some more oil, and then we're going to start cooking our other elements. So we're going to get to our shallots and our chicken next. And then we're going to assemble from there. So what we're doing right now is a process in wok cooking that we call a batch cook. Batch cook is essentially the process of cooking certain elements and then removing those elements and then repeating with the next element. So the goal here is to make sure that when we're wok frying, it's very, very tempting. As you can see, a wok is very large, so it's very, very tempting to just throw everything into that wok and just fill it right up. But the problem is that if you throw too many things into a wok, the temperature of the wok will start dropping really, really fast. And then once you hit a certain low point in a wok where you don't have enough heat, that's how you end up with stir fries that are really, really mushy. Or if you've ever had like a porridgey stir fry where it kind of like has the consistency of oatmeal, that's what's happening, is the wok is too cold, or there's not enough heat in it. So we want, as you can see, there's plenty of smoke coming off of the wok again. That's a good sign. We want all of that heat to come back before we start cooking again, otherwise we're going to end up with a mushy stir fry. Scott, the ingredients in the sauce. Yeah, so it's 6 tablespoons of fish sauce, 4 tablespoons of tamarind paste, and then we just added our aromatics. So that was garlic, ginger, and Thai chilies going in. Scott, if you're looking for all of the YouTube recipes, they have a YouTube videos that have a written recipe, which I can link. Yeah, so if you're looking for like the ingredients, that all lives over on YouTube, for sure. Because I know I forget to say ingredients a lot. Alright, so next up, now that we have plenty of smoke here, we're going to give our full long yao. So this is going to be a full 4 tablespoons or so of oil. And then we're going to do our long yao, which comes from Chinese wok cooking, which is essentially the process of adding your cooking oil to a very, very hot wok, and then letting it coat the wok from there. So super, super important. We don't want to add cold oil to a cold wok and then heat the wok up. Because what will happen is that things will start sticking, and then you're going to have a very, very sticky wok, and it's going to be really, really hard to cook on. So before you wok cook, the very first thing that you should be doing anytime that you're cooking in a wok should be your long yao. Charles, what am I drinking? Today I'm just drinking water. I will probably have some whiskey later. I'm drinking water right now because every time that I cook Thai chilies, they kick up capsaicin, which makes you cough because it's got a lot of like capsaicin in it. So one of the big downsides. Haven't figured out how to avoid that yet. All right, so next up into our wok, the first thing that we're adding really is our shallots. Very, very important, add that stuff early while the wok is empty so that we can bloom out the aromatic qualities of our shallots. If you add that stuff too late, you're just going to have raw shallots, which is not good. Or not what we're looking for, at least. Sometimes it's good, but in this case, not. So we're just trying to cook out some moisture here. That will probably take like a minute, maybe 2 minutes. No more than a minute and a half, actually, probably. Right around there. Scott, yeah, how do I clean the wok? We're going to get to that at the very, very end, but it's very similar to how you clean a cast iron pan, which is really like clean it while it's hot. So while the wok is hot, it's very non-stick. So give it a rinse while it's hot, and then as long as you have a good solid seasoning in your wok, that stuff should just come right off. So I have not scrubbed my wok in a long time. When I do have stuff that's stuck, most of the time when stuff sticks, I just scrub it with, literally I use this spoon and I just scrub stuff off. And that's like anytime something is like stuck to the wok, I use the spoon. And basically the goal is we don't want to do too much scrubbing, because if you do too much scrubbing in a carbon steel wok, what you'll end up, inevitably what you're going to end up doing is scrubbing off the seasoning, which is the most important part of the wok. That's what's making the wok non-stick. So we don't want to scrub off that seasoning. So that's why I kind of like go out of my way very, very often to make sure that I'm not scrubbing the wok. All right, so that's looking good. I'm gonna add my chicken next. It is a little bit clumpy because we don't have any liquid in our marinade, so I'm breaking it apart here. And my favorite quality about using chicken in this, or chicken thigh in this recipe, is that it's going to render out quite a bit of fat in this at this point, which is going to be pretty useful in building out the thickness of our sauce. It's actually kind of like the main reason why I like using chicken thigh in this recipe, as opposed to chicken breast. Yeah, is it the same one using a cast iron? So very, very similar. With a cast iron pan, we do the cast iron skillet. We do a similar thing. So you rinse the skillet down, rinse everything off, then reheat it, and then coat it in a bit of oil. Usually with a paper towel. Just that coating of oil makes sure that everything doesn't carbonize. And then once it's covered in oil, it won't start carbonizing. So you won't get things like rust. But what's really, really important about cleaning the wok, though, is that you do it while it's hot. Otherwise, things will start sticking. So yeah, Scott, if you stick around, if you're here by the end of the stream, we're going to run through how to do that too. Because so it's super important. We have to clean the wok while it's hot. So I'm going to remove stuff from the wok to a finishing bowl, and then immediately after I remove that, I'm going to clean it. Because it has to be done while the wok is hot. If it cools down, then things start sticking, which is never, ever, ever good. Alright, it's looking pretty good. We're going to start adding our other ingredients next. So before we add anything else though, first thing that we want to do is add a couple tablespoons of our sauce here. And what the goal here is to very, very gradually add that sauce at each stage of the wok fry. What that does is it gives an opportunity to build independent flavors for each ingredient that we add. So by adding that sauce really, really early, it kind of gives the opportunity to give the chicken some independent flavor before we add anything else. All right. Next up going in are our rice noodles. And just like with our chicken, we're going to add a couple tablespoons of sauce here. We're going to let that coat just so that we can get some flavor on our noodles. Yeah. And then our last veggie is going to be our bean sprouts. Bean sprouts are very, very delicate, so we want to add that stuff really, really late. You'll notice that we're pretty close to being done cooking at this point. That's okay, because bean sprouts don't need much cook time here. All right, I'm adding the rest of my sauce here. And then one more toss. And then finally is going to be our eggs. So super, super important. You'll notice that the eggs come very, very last, which is, in the way that I always think about it, is the exact opposite that you would do fried rice, in which you add them really, really early to develop like curds of egg. So we get like scrambled eggs in fried rice. In this case, we're not looking for scrambled eggs. What we're looking for are egg noodles that are coated in that egg. So by adding them really, really late, what we're going to end up with are those like iconic rice noodles that are fried in egg. And that's kind of like the noodle quality that you associate with any kind of Thai noodle dish that you've ever had. So like pad Thai, pad see pad drunken noodles. All of those things, what's happening is those noodles are being added at the very, very end of the wok fry. And that's going to give us that nice egg-coated rice noodle. The noodles are, I would say they're neither cold nor warm. They're like room temperature. If we were using like freeze-dried noodles, like pantry rice noodles, they would be warm because I would have had to par cook them. But that's sort of like my favorite part about fresh rice noodles, is that you don't have to par cook them. They're ready to go. I'm gonna add a little bit more noodle here. Cool. So you'll notice we don't need that egg to be set. That egg is going to have quite a bit of carryover, so we can absolutely kill the fire now. Actually, I'm going to let that cook for a little bit longer. But the egg will set while it's plated. That's because eggs have very, very delicate, and they cook in a lot of carryover. Yeah, that's better. Now we're setting. So what I like doing is removing it from heat and then letting the carryover cook set the egg. Camera back on. There it is. All right, so the very last thing that we want to do, I mentioned this earlier too, but the very last thing that we want to do once the wok is empty is clean it. So the wok is ripping hot still. So what we're going to do is, I don't have a camera over the sink, but all I'm really doing right now is just giving it a rinse. So I'm rinsing it down with a little bit of water, and most of the debris, I would say like Yeah, like 90% of what was left just came right off. So what's left is really just a little bit of egg is sticking to the wok. That happens sometimes. That especially happens with eggs. So that probably happens most when I do pad thai and pad see ew. So what you do when you notice that's happening is just use your cooking utensil and give that a little bit of a scrape. And then give it one more rinse. And that's just about it. So you'll notice almost everything came off. The last bit of things that had to come off were just a little bit of egg. We just pulled that off with some scraping, and that's about it. You don't really need to do very much else to a carbon steel wok. As long as it's seasoned properly, all of that stuff is going to come right off. So it will take a little bit for it to start developing a seasoning. So if you have a brand new carbon steel wok, usually for me it took like 6 or 7 cooks before it started seasoning and really kind of smooth, like developing a nice non-stick surface. So probably if you've ever owned a cast iron pan, it's probably very similar to that. My cast iron pan did a very similar thing too. But what's most important is that at the end of every cook that we clean it while it's hot and then re-season it. So we're going to coat it in a little bit of oil. That's going to help develop and continue that seasoning quality. And that's what will keep that non-stick surface going for the next time that you're ready to cook. So what I'm going to do here is I'm adding a tiny little bit of oil. So this is maybe half a tablespoon of oil, maybe even less than that. And just like any other cast iron pan that you've ever owned, we're going to coat it in a little bit of oil. Remember to do the bottom of your pans too. Our goal here is to coat everything in oil to make sure that nothing carbonizes, so we don't get any rust. And that's it. We're ready to cook something else. So the next time that you're ready to cook, your wok is ready to go. All right. Alright, we're finishing with a couple of different garnishes here. So the first up are our crushed honey roasted peanuts. Followed by our cilantro. And finally, some fresh lime. That ought to do it. Yeah, very tasty. Do the eggs cook? Yeah, so the eggs are setting, or the eggs have set at this point. In my experience, they usually set over the course of maybe 5 minutes off of heat. So at this point, they're completely set. But if you pull it off of heat a little bit earlier than that and you notice that the eggs are still a little bit loose, that's totally fine. Don't panic if your eggs are not quite set yet. That happens all the time. It's just the quality of it. Remember that eggs are extremely delicate, so and you actually want to pull it off before they set, because if you pull it off once they're set and then you serve it, what will happen is the carryover cook will overcook the eggs, and then you'll be serving pad thai with overcooked eggs. Which is going to be rubbery, and it's going to create a rubbery quality to your pad thai, which is not good. So it's even I would even recommend pulling it off before it sets, so that you let that carryover cook finish, and then you have perfectly set eggs. So it's kind of a similar way that we do like soft scrambled eggs, or even like fried eggs if you're doing like an over easy egg, is that you pull it off right before it's set, and then that carryover cook is going to do the last bit of work. But if you forget to account for carryover cook, what will happen is it will just overcook during the time, where it's like literally during the time between when you pull it off of the pan and when you set it in front of someone to eat, it will continue to cook, because eggs are literally that delicate. So very, very important anytime that you're working with eggs. Remember to account for carryover cook. Beef with broccoli. Oh yeah, cool. Repulsive ad. That's a good username. Yeah, cool. Jamba Juice. What's my favorite beer? I have a couple go-tos. Most of my favorite beers are local ones that are local to the like Oakland. So my favorite one is a beer from Ale Industries, which is here in Oakland. They do a really great. I think it's a Pilsner. It's called Golden Gate Cider. I think it's just called the Golden Gate, or something like that. And it's it's really tasty. I forget what exactly goes with it, but it's some kind of Pilsner. A lot of the beers that I drink are like local beers. So cool. All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If I missed any questions, feel free and repeat yourself. I know I miss questions all the time, so if I missed anything, feel free. Don't panic about repeating. That's not a big problem. If you haven't hopped over to the YouTube channel yet, definitely check out what's going on over there. Lots of fun content popping up lately. We have new recipes. Those are coming out every Friday. So 2 days from now. So this Friday, we're doing a Japanese white miso curry, which is going to be really, really tasty. It's actually a curry that I've been working on perfecting for quite a while. That's going to be a part of our series doing Bay Area restaurant hacks. And it's an homage to a curry that you can find here in the San Francisco called Bazaar Cafe. That's kind of like a local legend curry that's been like really, really popular around the neighborhood. We have a whole bunch of food that come from that series. So this particular pad thai is inspired by a pad thai that you find here in Oakland called Nicha Thai. We've done a couple of things from Nicha Thai. We have a couple of different series. There's another series that's dedicated to just reproducing foods from TV and film, which is super, super fun, because it's always like difficult to like figure out what those things are sometimes. There's another series that's dedicated to just reproducing foods from Chinese American cuisine, which has been like really, really fun to do, because a lot of those foods don't make any sense. A lot of Chinese American food is not Chinese at all. So one that we did really recently was a Beijing beef from Panda Express, which is like a deep fried Angus steak, which I have never seen anything like that in literally any Asian cuisine ever. So it's really interesting to take that apart and kind of try and reassemble it without the like American qualities, because something like a Beijing beef has no Chinese qualities. It's really just American food or something. I don't even know what it is. What I do know is that it's really, really tasty. So stuff like that all comes up in that series. So if you're looking for weird like ways that I have like appropriated Chinese American food in a traditional Chinese sense, it's a really fun series to take a look at. So if you're looking for the recipes for all of the things that I cook too, that's also where they all live. So if you haven't checked out those things and you're trying to cook the things that I'm cooking, also if you're looking for all of those ingredients, that all lives over on YouTube. So hop over and check that out if you haven't yet. That's youtube.com/WooCanCook. I know lots of people are also watching over there right now, which is super, super fun. Tomorrow we're doing Shanghainese lion's head meatballs. We're going to be doing a charity stream tomorrow for my buddy Brent, who has a friend who's in the hospital right now. So we're doing a charity stream trying to raise money for their GoFundMe. They're trying to raise, I think it's $25,000 to cover some medical bills. So tomorrow's going to be a fun charity stream, and then we're going to kick all of the proceeds from tomorrow's stream to my buddy Brent and their GoFundMe. So cool. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Pop over to YouTube. Check out what's going on if you haven't yet. And I'll see you soon. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll be back 6:30 tomorrow. Bye.
shelf. In case my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Got another mouth to feed. Leave it with the babysitter, mama call the grave digger. Gone with the fallen leaves. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might have had your fill, I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, I can feel it still. We can fight a war for peace. Give in to that easy living. Goodbye to my hopes and dreams. Stop flipping for my enemies. We could wait until the walls come down. It's time to give a little to the kids in the middle. But oh, until it falls, won't bother me. I'm a rebel just for kicks. Yeah, you lovers in a bitch for my heart to eclipse. Might be over now, I feel it still. I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Might have had your fill, I can feel it still.
The club isn't the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends sat at the table doing shots, drinking fast, and then we talk slow. Come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop and the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. And now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Well, come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Well, come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room. Now my bed sheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. 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 Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. When we can, we let the story begin. We're going out on our first date. Well, you and me are thrifty, so go all you can eat. Fill up your bag and I fill up a plate. We talk for hours and hours about the sweet and the sour and how your family's doing okay. And leaving, getting a taxi, kissing the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. And I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room. Now my bed love with your body. I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. Come on, be my baby. Come on, 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 come on, be my baby. Come on.
Nhưng mà bên ngoài đó là ta sống bình thường với họ để họ thấy ta cũng bình thường.